Neni.
Oh.
I'm okay with that. So.
Because of the Neni, we had to delay putting out a notice for like 3 days.
But that was the change you wanted to make.
Yes. So we had to hold on to sending invitations and everything until the designer was able to put out that change.
I'm sorry for that.
Oh, no. It just means that I really should call you Neni. Neni.
Well, if it will be problematic, then you can just call me Ato. That is fine.
Yeah, no, a name is a name. We'll get around it. Yeah.
So, I mean, we survived free dual, so.
Yes. You know, you get people being very insistent, and it's actually how it should be. You pronounce their names correctly. You tell me when the stream is up. Is up. IG2. Well, good evening, everybody, and I had to welcome indeed to the restart of our joint programming between the Writers Project of Ghana and Goethe Institute Ghana. This particular program that we are having tonight is Poetry Time at Goethe Abansro. And this is a themed poetry reading that happens once every second month. And we have invited poets who are going to share their works. And we have a deeper interrogation into the themes behind the poetry that they share. And so tonight I am welcoming you to the program and just also mentioning that the program is live on our YouTube channel and also on IG. And so welcome to those who are joining us via those media as well. And for those who are here with us in person at the Goethe Institute Ghana offices in cantonments. My name is Martin Egble-Ogbe, and I will be giving a fuller should I say, a fuller bio of our guests, but I will mention their names right away. I have with me Tony Fua on stage and in person, and then I also have Neni Ato Bentum, and he is joining virtually. Now, tonight, what we want to do is to examine the themes of the poet and their environment. We often come across poets writing about some sort of interaction with their environment, either with nature, with society, and with people. And what we want to do tonight is to ask the poets to read poems that connect them with their environment. And we also would like to have a discussion on certain themes which I'm going to mention. So tonight, what we are going to do is have themed readings and discussions. And also, we are happy to have comments and questions from all those who are joining us. If you are joining online, you can send your comments. We'll pick them up and share them. And if you are here when we give the cue, you can pick up a microphone and ask a question. So 2 poets tonight. Tony Fua. Tony
Yes,
is a business development manager. And so the first question, of course, is why is he leaving money for for writing? That is something that's going to come along. And then we also have Ato Nini Ato Bentum. I'm really not trying to murder his first name. It's taking time getting used to it. But he is a writer. But do you do any other thing professionally, Ato?
Yes, professionally, I'm a teacher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so a teacher, and Ato is joining us virtually, but he's firmly in Ghana. We do hope that at some point in time we'll be able to feature him in person on stage as well. Tony, what made you divert your attention from business to poetry, or did you divert from poetry to business?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Doc. Thanks to everyone that is here. It's rather an intimate session, and we appreciate you. Thanks to our viewers online. Doc, I don't know if I'm diverting to say, but by day, unfortunately, I'm a boring person. I work in business development, read numbers, but at night, I feel like a superhero. I express my creative powers. So poetry has always been with me. It's been a passion of mine. Today's topic is quite interesting with man and his environment and the way our environment inspires us. I'm sure as we get into it, we'll talk more about how we are all poets. Whether we choose to accept that burden or responsibility and express it is another thing. So I'm not diverting. I just feel like labels are for jars, and I'm fully expressing myself. So
You know, the way you say it, that you are kind of more exciting at night, you know. It does come across a little bit more sinister than you might expect. Anyway, how about you, Ato? Is it do you divert from your teaching more in the night, or is your writing something that interferes with your day job?
Writing for me interferes with my day job as I love to express myself, and part of the media for me has been to write.
What we are going to do is announce or mention a theme, and then I'm going to take the readings in turns. You know, so I bring forward the team. Tony is going to give us a reading, and then we talk a bit more about it. And so what we'll do for the very first cycle of readings is to make it a bit more relaxed and to say that the poets are free to choose the themes on which they'll read. So let's start with you, Tony. With any theme that strikes your fancy, choose a poem and let's share it.
okay, so for the first theme, I'll consider it as an introduction. I know we're here for poetry. I call this one My Truth. So my poetry is basically me, like I said earlier, expressing my honest views and feelings about life. So this is a very short poem to introduce you to the kind of writing that I do. To you, I give my most beautiful words, my passion in ink, my thoughts in black on white, so you may see me in true color, without the palette that paints on my insecurities. To you, I give my poetry.
Yes.
Thank you.
A short introduction and actually announcing what you you want to do with your poetry, sharing it with us. Thank you. It is a good way to start the program. Actually, I think I like it very much. How about you, Atom?
So like I said in my introduction, for me, writing is a space for me to express myself, express my thoughts. Because on a normal day, I don't see myself that way, but most people around me think or say that I'm a quiet person, which I largely agree with them. And so for me, the space for me to speak my thoughts out is to write. And that's what I mostly do. I'm going to read my first poem titled Faces, and the context is basically what I see around me. I'm thinking about Ghana and Africa at large going into election. You will see, or we've been seeing, a number of campaign posters. So I want to talk about this issue of politicians and their role in defacing the environment, contributing to making the fight against making the environment more terrible a place to live, beside their usual actions, which maybe that would be another conversation for another day. So the title of my poem, the first poem, is Faces. And this poem was published in Contemporary Ghanaian Writers Series, issue number 4. So, seen everywhere on potholed pavement, right under the armpit of the newly constructed underbridge, beside the road wealthy trotro, and on the width of the dusty road dustbins. These faces are men, or are men, aspiring leaders of politics, running or maybe walking in hired scallywag legs, defacing the street, ripping off the environment of its right. Yet these faces are campaign messages promising of hope. Do they not see their faces on garbage bins also? The end. Thank you.
Well, thank you. So both of you have conspired to start with very short poems. But again, this is also quite curious. When you think about the whole election cycle, one of the most prominent things that you come across in the streets are the billboards. Billboards, and I mean they've started coming up, and I mean this is just going to intensify. We're going to have lots of faces staring down at us. And interestingly, I know that some billboards and some posters have survived since 2020. So I guess this is a rather interesting take on them. But I think that from the perspective of a poet, I mean, you probably are also thinking in terms of metaphor. These are faces that are appearing and staring at us. Beyond the lines that you have presented, do you have any, should I say, deeper meanings that perhaps you might want to share? If it hasn't struck you, I mean, that's fine, but it's a question worth asking.
Yeah. With this particular, there have been other poems that have been very metaphorical with the message that I've intended to communicate. But with this particular poem, I was very intentional about my style to be straightforward with what I want to say. So, a bit of context or background to this poem. I think once I was walking on the street of Cape Coast, specifically Victoria Road. For those who are familiar with Cape Coast, would know what I'm talking about. Then there was this dustbin, smelly. I mean, the smell was terrible. And yes, beside this smelly dustbin was one popular politician was vying for Bishop. And I was like,
he was buying what?
He was trying to be an MP.
So you mean his was on the dustbin?
Yes. And I don't know, somehow, somewhere, just I smiled, and it also struck me that has he seen, I mean, his face on the dustbin, and not any other dustbin, but then a dustbin containing smelly
that is a metaphor in itself, isn't it?
Profound one.
Right. So you're talking about someone who is campaigning for political office, I mean, bringing hope, but then in his attempt to bring hope, he's actually contributing to a problem that he probably promising to fix. And for me, it's funny that these our politicians, I mean, most of them, if not all of them, do not take environmental issues serious.
Which actually ties in with some of the things that we want to discuss this evening, really, and that has to do with how, let's say, the poet sees their interaction with nature, and how such things appear in their poetry. You know, a lot of the time you would find poets waxing lyrical about the streams, the trees, etc., etc. We want to see if this is something that appears in your works, and whether, in fact, it is something that you can make further metaphors of. So, for the second theme, really, for tonight, it ties in directly with the nature and the environment, and the idea being, how does the environment, how does nature impact your writing as a poet?
I think it really does. I mean, our environment is our surroundings, and human beings are an experience. So we help make up our environment, and our environment inspires us to be the kind of experience that we are. I talk a little bit about it in my book. This is not an advert, but in Maisha, I talk about a branch of philosophy called epistemological philosophy, which talks about our knowledge of nature and also seeking validation of that knowledge. Sorry, ontological philosophy. So we're part of our nature, and our nature, the surroundings around us, informs or inspires us to be who we are and the experience we have and what we write. So whatever we write, in my next poem, you see that the metaphors are quite strict in using our surroundings, even materializing our feelings with the abstract concepts around us. So the things we see every day, we use to express our vivid emotions. So even if you want to tell someone they are beautiful or that you love them, you use things around you and the feelings those things inspire within you.
Yeah, just also to mention that feel free to talk about your work, and because there is a book that I call it a mixed genre book that Tony has put out, and it's called Maisha, which, because he has actually explained everything to me before, it's a Swahili word. Yes, and Ato, on the other hand, is widely published in several journals, the latest being the second edition of the Journal of the Writers Project of Ghana, where he has 3 very striking poems. I don't know if they will feature tonight, but probably they will not, because the themes are divergent. Tony, let's hear your poem. Okay. And just as you fetch it, just a reminder that I will be taking any messages that come on my phone, so that we can share them with the audience.
So this poem is titled Love is Blind, but don't let it deceive you. The night the sun kissed the moon, I sold my sight to the beauty and darkness. She took my mind too, gave me a high and settled me in loftier realms without the safety of a harness. Her promises of heavens to touch, the hope for eternity with much, is the cause of my emotional madness. All of myself I denied for her, for only in letting go of my corrupt mind could I truly fall. Fell I did, drop from heavenly thrones of willpower. My heart feels its own pain. My mind tortures itself with thoughts of regret, but my eyes remember not. All it sees is her beauty. For not in blurry shades shall I condemn myself to her, but in glorious color shall I submit to her again and again. And then the next short one is the come up. My purple is plain and my orange is ordinary, but things won't stay the same, for soon comes the day of my unnecessary.
Well, thank you for two poems on one theme, even though they seem to, I wasn't very I mean, I didn't connect them very, very well. So you will have to speak a bit more to their relationship to each other.
So the first poem, Love is Blind, is actually talking about ambition and using metaphors such as the night the sun kisses the moon, and what the moon represents to us, what our stars represent to us, the fact that we have life on Earth today. On Earth, we have life and we have oxygen because of our relationship with our star. And the next poem uses the colors around us to describe our hopes for tomorrow.
Oh, okay, so that's something I didn't quite expect that, but I wonder why not, because we associate colors with emotions actually, and I think that it's not even an idle association, because apparently there is some scientific basis to how colors can actually affect a person's mood and actions. So when I did ask how the environment would affect or impact the poet, the last thing on my mind was colors. Anyway,
with this one, usually you're told the color purple is a vibrant color, and as a creative writer, we tell you inspiration is vibrant. As long as you're writing, you're going to feel good, have feel good emotions. But the opening line says, "My purple is plain." So the vibrancy of my inspiration is dull. Although I feel inspired with work, the suffering of consistency, of not being unveiled to the world, of my work not being appreciated, kind of defeats the purpose of purple being vibrant.
But let me ask a question that is just a little to one side of the main discussion. When you're writing, do you purposefully try and create an environment for yourself that may enhance what you're writing about? I mean, do you probably find a place somewhere, maybe in the garden, or lock yourself in a room? You try and create some sort of environment that
definitely, especially when you're working on a big project, like you're working on a book. I read a book by Stephen Pressfield, The War of Art, and it talks about creative resistance and how you have to be intentional about, inspiring yourself, your environment. You can't leave everything to, like we say here, freestyle. As soon as something pops into my mind, I put something down. But when you're going to work, you have to treat it as any other business. You need to have a structure. You need to build your environment. You need to make sure there are cues, intentional cues that are going to inspire certain things within you. So yes, I do that. I do that a lot.
Let me move over to you, Ato, and I want to hear your take on basically the poet's interaction with the environment and how your environment appears, your perception of the environment appears in your writing.
Well, I, as a poet or a writer in the generic term, I think of the environment to be as
okay.
Sorry. I'm sorry. As a poet, I'm saying that I think of the environment to be directly linked to whatever that we, as humans, we do. To this, I mean that without the environment, humans do not exist. And so I mostly write about the environment because I think environment and human beings go hand in hand. Without one, the other cannot exist.
Just to chip in, I don't know if everyone has that feeling where usually your inspiration comes in the form of questions. So whether you're writing a poem or you're writing an article, there's always the why about an industry-specific topic. And then you have to kind of do the work of finding the answers. I feel like naturally human beings are built with that intrinsic motivation to ask ourselves why. I mean, even when we're babies, when a toddler says dada, it's cute. When a toddler says mama, but as soon as a toddler learns to ask why, you're in trouble. incessant why about any and everything. So I think that understanding of, or the need to understand our environment is linked to how we become creative and write poems and novels and stuff.
Yeah, well, thanks for that. Let's take a poem from you, Ato, on this theme.
Okay, so I want to read a poem that I've titled Scene 3, Gone But Never Forgotten. It's a poem from my forthcoming anthology titled Baby Eni.
Let me just interrupt. I mean, I want the title again. It's what? Baby Eni.
Baby Eni. Yes,
Baby
there's
Eni.
no other place like this place.
Right.
So this is what we have. This is everything that we have, and so it's important that we keep it the best that we can. So I read Gone But Never Forgotten. Sometimes funeral songs are not played for those who have broken their hearts. I learned this in my last funeral, the one before the going of Fayamara, my favorite goat. Maybe it should not have been a goat, just maybe. Fayamara should not have gone out that morning. Just tempted by its gluttonous stomach and deceived by its dried mouth, he chewed the DDT-infested kenke with joy, and that was his way of eating his cake and having it. He died slowly, punching the hair and holding on to nothing but his white foaming lips. It was not pathetic. I saw how human can also die, in silence or in gushing for breath. This is a personal poem, and most of my poems, I should say, are from personal experience. So I have deep connection with most of the poems that I write. So this was a poem I wrote about the goat, and that goat is symbolic in my family. I remember when I have three, we are four. We are four siblings. I have three sisters. And I'm proud to say that I'm the only male, so the last born also. So my second.
Okay. I'm not too sure where that is from. Okay, but I suppose that if you remove Ato, then that means you don't have our guests.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not too sure what's happened, but Ato, if you can rejoin, I don't know if you are still on, but there must have been some sort of an issue with your connection. In any case,
have a question.
Well, okay. Could you please type the question in first so that we can have an idea what it is? Okay. I believe that guests on Zoom should be muted or removed altogether. I think, I don't know. Okay, so let's see if we can get Ato back. But in the meantime, I think that we can continue the conversation on this
Sure.
end, Tony. I just wanted actually to mention that I find Ato's poetry extremely striking, and I'm looking forward to his collection coming out, because I feel that there are many important new writers who we've just not noticed,
Yes.
and I would have really liked for him to tell me a little bit more about the poem that just went by. But in any case, the readings that have gone on seem to have bled into the second theme we wanted to discuss, which really has to do with the environment of your society, the people around you, the relationships, etc. We wanted first to more or less take a look at the physical environment and then the environment of society. And I think that what we can do is to get into that second, or is it the third theme for the evening, and that is really the environment of your society and the relationships.
Sure, sure. So this next poem, I actually wrote it today, particularly for this theme. So as a paranoid writer, it's probably not done yet, in my opinion. Before it comes out, there'll be some changes, but it is honest. And I titled it the EDGs, End Time Developmental Goals. I'm sure you've heard of the MDGs and the SDGs by the UN. All our countries come together and have a consensus that we're going to pursue these 15 or 17 developmental goals, and there will be no poverty, access to quality education. I'm a believer. I've done some work in charity with Osajifo Scholarship where we're trying to increase access to quality education. But really, okay, let me just go to the poem and then I'll let the poem do the talking. No moon, no light. Let the darkness bury us. No stars, no shine. Rhythm of glory leaves our hearts. Your silence is as cold as the Arctic winds. It freezes to death the children of innocence. Mother Nature cries. Climate changes, but the drum of your sins beat the same tune. Pick a bus and miss a train. Plant a seed and mine no gold. When your hypocrisy talks sustainable solutions, you offer a rock in a hard place. Slavery and capitalism, natural cataclysm and artificial intelligence. You kiss my flowers like Judas and embrace my animals like Brutus. Why do you place the blanket of hope of future generations in the belly of the dungeon dragon? The paradox of escaping the fire through a light you're blind to. Greed is no hero. The beast is hominis factura. No moon, no light. Let the darkness bury us. No stars, no shine. Rhythm of glory leaves our hearts.
Okay, so that is the third, I think, reading from you, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
I just have a little comment about Ato's unfortunate disappearance from the Zoom. He says that he's trying to join, but he's having some challenges. If he does join before the program ends, we of course will have him back, and so that we can hear his poetry. But I must mention once again that he's published variously. His name is Neni Ato Bentum, and you can look up some of his writing online. I think he's significant and poet to look out for. And Tony is also working on a collection of poetry, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So I suppose
sometime in the future.
I mean, when I was selecting the two of you to come, that was one important point for me. You have a book out and you are working on another collection.
Yes.
Before we investigate a little bit more about the poem you just read, since we are on the topic of what the books and stuff, I mean, maybe just tell us a little bit about that anthology of poetry you are working on.
Okay, so it's going to touch on diverse poetry topics, diverse abstract topics. It's going to be a unique collection, an interesting collection. There will be something for the lovebirds. There will be something for the sad boys and girls. There will be yes, everyone will be represented. There will be something for the women with fierce spirits fighting for true causes, fighting to make changes, especially in this world where it seems that we're going back to our barbaric ways, all the hypocrisy, and I'm sure we tie it into the poem that I just read. Yeah, so there'll be something that will challenge everybody's thoughts about the world around us, the responsibility that we face, that we accept individually and then collectively as a people.
You know, as a writer myself, I have a very wicked feeling when I put somebody on the spot and say, "Tell us what you're writing." You know, because I know that sometimes completing work can be very, very slow. You know, but I guess it also is a way of saying that whatever you are writing, finish the book and let's read it.
Exactly.
Okay, so you did give us a poem, you know.
Yes, I did.
I want you to just give us a little bit about the writing of that poem, something about the background, and in general, what makes you want to sit down and write a poem, and what made you write that particular poem? I did hear some elements of activism in it, which is something I also want to ask you later.
So when I got the program outline from you, and then I saw the theme, I started thinking. I think before we mentioned ontological psychology and our need to know what nature represents to us, the responsibility it burdens us with, and also the validation of that knowledge. And if you look at the world today, it seems we're doing all right, at least on online and in the diplomatic space. When you turn on your news, I mean, the West stands for what is right, and our future is bright, and humanity is safe. Seems everybody's playing their part. The UN is playing their part. Europe is playing their part. But at the same time, women and children are still dying in armed conflict. When I was 14 years, I was very honored to be a part of a model UN conference in Washington at the state capitol. We were kids from school that were cosplaying delegates, right? And one of the topics were children and women in armed conflict. And I remember saying at the time, raising my placard and saying that, yes, we need these resolutions about ceasefire. We need to have these conversations. But if there's no armed conflict, there will be no women and children casualties. And it seemed like the most ridiculous thing anyone could say at the time. And you can imagine how hard it was for me as a Ghanaian kid, a Black kid. You know, my father suffered to buy that plane ticket, go all the way, speak, and it looked at like I was ridiculous. But I think it was the most honest thing anyone could ask for. And even today, something like that is still controversial. People can't ask for a ceasefire. People can't say stop the violence. People can't say stop the war, because it's controversial. What are you saying? What do you mean stop the killing? What do you mean stop the war? Does that mean, are you choosing a side? No, I'm choosing the side of humanity. There's no sides to, you know. So I was thinking about that and how come, thank you. So I was just thinking about how come we're doing all right politically. I mean, we're right politically, but at the same time, when you look at the soul quality of our causes, the causes we are fighting for, we're still deviating and exploring whether it is intentional with hypocrisy, or we really just need a wake-up call. We really just need to be reminded that, look, this is what is important. You understand? I mean, Ato read a poem and made a statement about the political campaign and having posters. What is really important? How does a poster end up there? Do you really need your poster there if you're actually doing the things you're supposed to be doing? So whilst I was exploring those thoughts, I started writing the poem, and I realized that we've actually deviated from our natural calling, which is to preserve this world and the environment we have around us. And for some reason, we're chasing a dream of the next generation or the next vision, which is artificial intelligence. I use AI in my work a lot, but it seems we're chasing intelligence without wisdom. We're here, we have life, and we're supposed to take care of the world. We're destroying the world. We're exploring multi-planetary, schemes, and we're building artificial intelligence. So in one of the lines, it says, the paradox of escaping the fire through a light you're blind to. Greed is no hero. The beast is hominis factura. Now, one of the biggest companies we have now is NVIDIA. NVIDIA is a data processing company that builds AI chips. So all the AI we have today, OpenAI, I'm sure poets and writers use it a lot.
You have already confessed. You have already confessed. You use it.
It's a good tool. It's a good tool. So it's a company that's just building the future for tomorrow. And NVIDIA, as the name of the company, is an amalgam of two terms. One, the NV meaning next vision, and the Vidia meaning envy in Latin, which is greed. So it's ironic that we're chasing the next vision or our future with AI, with greed. But
There was something quite interesting that you also mentioned earlier, which was basically that we seem to be retrogressing and becoming more barbaric, even as we are moving forward with all these nice new fancy technologies. And you did say something which I find very striking. What is more simple to ask for than stop killing people, but
Exactly.
It's a question that has been asked for millennia, and I doubt that it's going to have an answer. Certainly, we won't find an answer this evening. So what we want to do is, and for some reason, you keep preempting the next theme. I guess that's because you've seen all the themes beforehand. But you have the apple. So yeah, because the next thing we wanted to talk about really and listen to a poem from you on is whether or not really we have a responsibility towards our environment. In a way, one would think that the environment can keep giving and keep giving and keep giving. And I mean, that's what it's there for, right? We really don't have any responsibility for it. And but then you could think of the other way of you have to nurture, you have to keep it, you have to preserve it, etc. Question and the theme, because I've seen a lot of poets who are writing from the perspective of conservation, preservation, a return to a balance between progress and nature. I wanted to probe and find out if you have poetry in that line and if, in fact, you can tell us your thoughts on such a thing.
Okay, so actually the EDGs, the poem I just wrote touches on that. So I'll probably read it again to see if people catch that bit. But yes, I feel like we do have a responsibility towards nature. Like you were saying, there's certain basic truths that are controversial now. I mean, in the poem, I say, when your hypocrisy talks sustainable solutions, you offer a rock and a hard place, slavery or capitalism. These days, we can't have a solution that truly preserves nature. We have to have one thing or the other, right? So if you plant a seed, you can't mine the gold, and we need gold for transactions. We need gold to build businesses, to build economies. So Mother Nature has to die. But I feel like we could find a healthy balance where we can do the right thing and offer true sustainable solutions to our problems.
Okay.
So I'll take the poem again. So once again, the title is EDGs, End Time Developmental Goals. No moon, no light. Let the darkness bury us. No stars, no shine. Rhythm of glory leaves our hearts. Your silence is as cold as the Arctic winds. It freezes to death the children of innocence. Mother Nature cries, climate changes, but the drum of your sins beat the same tune. Pick a bus and miss a train. Plant a seed and mine no gold. When your hypocrisy talks sustainable solutions, you offer a rock and a hard place. Slavery and capitalism, natural cataclysm and artificial intelligence. You kiss my flowers like Judas and embrace my animals like Brutus. Why do you place the blanket of hope of future generations in the belly of the dungeon dragon? The paradox of escaping the fire through a light you're blind to. Greed is no hero. The beast is hominis fractura. No moon, no light. Let the darkness bury us. No stars, no shine. Rhythm of glory leaves our hearts. Thank you.
I think that the second reading of the poem, for some reason, sounded much more grim than the first one. I think that what we can do also is invite any comments or questions from the audience before we go on to do some more readings. I must say that it's a continuing struggle to get Ato back on, but we'll see whether we can sort it out before the program ends. So let's see if there are any comments either on IG, YouTube, or in fact from the audience here that we can take before we move on? Okay, so we'll have to, I think whilst that is happening, we'll have to just proceed. You've given us a poem really that was talking about whether in fact there is a responsibility. You have answered with a resounding yes, but I suppose from a business perspective, you do see that it has to be a balance, right?
It has to be a balance.
We can't let humanity perish for trees to grow, you know.
No, no.
I feel that we also have
We can't fight for animal rights whilst people are hungry. So
yeah, it's really a very
any
interesting
vegans
balance.
or
yeah, it's a difficult balance
Yeah.
actually. But it's something that we really should look at.
Mm.
Now, tied to that is the idea of activism, you know, and I think that you have already mentioned, you probably have been in this sort of space for a long time. You mentioned that when you were 14, you went for this mock UN assembly thing. The question really is, for a poet, is the role more removed from what is happening? Is it more of an observer, or is it more of activism? When you do write, do you write to try and make some change, or do you write as a removed observer? I mean, this is what I see, and I can comment on it, but I don't really care which way it goes, you know. I would like you to speak on that, and then after that, let's see if you have any poem that has a more a larger leaning towards activism, you know, as opposed to just an observational stance.
I think it's really more about individuality. I feel like we all play a role that we naturally fit in as creative people. I mean, I'm inspired by the likes of James Baldwin for a reason. There's a reason why I like his works. I'm sure there are people that probably wouldn't connect to him. Like I said, and at the end of the day, human beings are experiences. The environment we exist in, the people we engage, all help form our ultimate experience that people experience when they engage with us. So depending on the experiences the person has had, you know, and to some extent the privileges that has been afforded that person because of those experiences will place you in the role of an observer or an active. I mean, if you grew up in Switzerland, went to Swiss boarding schools, you're not going to write a poem like Bury Me Alive that I read on your show, or you're not going to write a poem like And Still I Rise, or some of James Baldwin's interesting works. You're not going to have that experience to tap into. You understand? So I think it's more of an individual thing, but we can encourage. We can build a course. We can challenge ourselves collectively to participate. I mean, what is going on in Gaza and what is going on in Congo, even if you're not privileged with the experience of facing those things, you can still, you know, be encouraged to either through your creative writing or through activism. When I grew up in a zongo. A zongo is a colloquial term for a slum. So just imagine, let's say, the projects. They say projects, right? The projects in America, but there are no projects. They're just bare sand and kiosk and killers. You understand? And and I thought that was the worst possible solution. And until I had to write a position paper on how to eradicate poverty, and I was writing on, I think, about Kenya, and I saw that people actually die. I saw millions of people. The stats were ridiculous. Millions of people dying of hunger. So I thought I had the experience of hunger. You know, you don't eat by 6 p.m., you eat, Charlie, you almost die, and you know that's the end of the world. But that that knowledge. I hadn't experienced. Obviously, I'm here in my life. I haven't died of hunger before, so it's not like I have the experience of dying of hunger and resurrecting like Jesus and coming back to do activism. So you can learn, you can educate yourself, and then participate in a course, challenge yourself. Yeah.
Right. There's a lot of humor in what you said, but it's kind of black. It's kind of black, so maybe we shouldn't follow it. When you say, so you've not died of hunger before, what have you died of before, That's still here. Okay, so but I mean, in terms of poems that are directly in the line of
men have died of strong feelings also.
People,
love has killed a lot of people.
If you go down that path, I suppose we have to make a new theme. We do one go to Aban's Road to just examine the deaths that have been caused by love. Probably starting from the most famous Romeo and Juliet, which actually is rather murderous if you think about it. Now, do you have a poem that really would speak to activism? If you do, then we could take that as we begin the winding down sequence for the evening.
Not necessarily on activism.
Right. Well, let's hear what you have then, because you do this one and then you'll have to do the final one, which is a free theme, right?
Exactly.
So there are 2 poems, and I have to also say that you are standing in for Ato as well. So you are doing the work of 2 poets, but you are not doing badly.
Thank you. Ato was fantastic, by the way, before he left.
Yeah. Well, I mean, wonders happen. We are still in touch with him, and he may still be able to join. Who knows?
So with this poem, to kind of bring in our audience, after I read the poem, I'll let some of them suggest the title for the poem, and we'll see if it is near anything that I have here. Kind of test. I mean, like the theme we have here, our environment and how it inspires us, and if truly we are all experiences, we'll learn a bit before we go. Time fails in this war of shadows. She suffers to define the grief of yesterday, yet she fails. The promise of the public today instructs and burdens time, and still she fails. The consequences borrow from the cause, a loss and a hole. There's no healing. The soil bleeds as seeds of hope die. A light is buried and tomorrow has no solace. So that's the first poem on this theme about time. I'll take it again and then maybe we engage the audience.
Okay, so the question, to be sure, and let me repeat and emphasize, is Tony is reading a poem and he's asking us to title it for him. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Time fails in this war of shadows. She suffers to define the grief of yesterday, yet she fails. The promise of the public today instructs and burdens time, and still she fails. The consequences borrow from the cause, a loss and a hole. There's no healing. The soil bleeds as seeds of hope die. A light is buried, and tomorrow has no solace.
Wow. Okay, so I thought the questions that I set in my exams were hard, but those are totally different level, man. So or can I also suggest the title?
Yes, please.
Solace.
You first.
I would suggest Solace.
Solace.
Yes.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, and
anyone else?
We throw it also open to the audience. If there's any offer here, and also
wait in time. Wait as in you're waiting, or the wait measurement. Wait in time. Wow, that's interesting.
Okay. Yeah. It's also a title that would excite a physicist, you know. Yeah, any others?
Unending grappling.
Grappling.
Grappling. Okay. Interesting.
Is there a prize for this?
You get a copy of Maisha.
Okay. So who would you think has got the
anyone else? Maybe our
Okay.
ladies.
right? Yeah. Okay.
I think she wants to try
There's
something.
one more. set of readings.
Okay. Thank you very much. I apologize. We had a problem. I guess it's a technical problem.
Yeah, I don't think it.
You were trying hard to fix.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could read the poem I read before.
Yes.
the line dropped.
Yes, please do that. Actually, that's what we want.
Okay. So the title is Scene 3, Gone But Never Forgotten. Sometimes funeral songs are not played for those who have broken their hearts. I learned this in my last funeral, the one before the going of Fayamara. Maybe it should not have been a goat, just maybe. Fayamara should have not gone out that morning. Tempted by its gluttonous stomach and deceived by its dried mouth, he chewed that DDT-infested Kenke with joy, and that was his way of eating his cake and having it. He died slowly, punching the air and holding on to nothing but his white foaming lips. It was not pathetic. I saw how humans can also die, in silence or in gushing for breath.
Yeah.
So this is a
But no, but I mean, I didn't quite expect that at a point during this program would all of a sudden be talking about death and I mean, yeah, it's a dead goat. It's a goat. It's a goat, right? And you also had a poem, and you were talking about.
We'll end with love. Don't worry.
We'll end with love. Okay, so we'll be smiling in the end. To tell us a little bit about this, but this poem, okay, just quickly because we want to make up for lost time too.
Okay, so this poem is basically about, it's a personal poem, personal issue that I was talking about, but then it's also about how human beings are, seem to me to be very cruel. Human beings in our part of the world seem to be very cruel to animals. And so in this poem, I'm narrating a personal experience I had with, we had a goat, and there's an interesting story about this goat. My second elder sister, when she gave birth to her first son, part of the gift that the husband gave her was a goat. And we called the goat Fayamara. It was more like a pet, but then we wanted to use it for something. But we love the goat to the extent that our original intention of possibly killing it for the 1 week celebration. And we had a change of thought because I don't know, somehow, some way we got attached to the goat. But the unfortunate happened. Fayamara went out. Fayamara is an accountant, meaning do it to me alone and not any other person. That is the literal translation. And so she went out on a usual strolling and she returned with a foaming. Yeah, she came and she returned with a foaming lip, and the scene of her death was quite pathetic for some of us. How she slowly died. It was a scene that touched most of us, including myself. So
I'm sorry, but for some reason I'm not able to sympathize.
I have no sympathies.
You make it. You actually make it sound hilarious. I mean, I don't know, man, but
I feel like it was a sign from God, because I was thinking when he read the poem at first,
Yeah.
I thought the goat was a metaphor for something else, to represent something else. I didn't know there was an actual pet.
Yeah, but I mean, if I think about this,
I'm sure it's God's own poetic way of telling you that I'm born a sereno. You've learned it from my yard. Do it alone.
I don't want to bring God in at this instant, but then if you should even bring God in, then there's a Bible quote in, I think, Proverbs, if I'm not mistaken, Proverbs chapter 12, verse 10. And it says that, if you don't mind, it says, a righteous man respects the life of its animal, And so I'm here in this poem, I'm talking about why it's important for us, even though it's on a personal level, we could talk about it that way. I'm also thinking that on a deeper level, we could think about how some human beings in our part of the world are very cruel to the extent of poisoning an innocent animal.
Well, one can say that ultimate respect, the way I face my fufu and goats, there's no other respect for the animal.
I think you have to take this up face to face with Tony.
What would you prefer? That
I will be around. I will be around on Saturday. If Tony will be around,
so what would you
like to have a conversation?
Would have been favorable? Farmer Yara on a plate, chichenga, hot spice, or that looking to death with DDT. Which outcome do you think is honorable? Chichenga is honorable.
I have no problem. I have no problem with you preferring meat and to specific goat meat. The point I'm trying to make, the message I'm trying to put across is that it's also important for us, even though we like meat and all that. I am not against anyone who likes meat or not, but I'm making a point that it's also important for us as human beings, especially in our part of the world. I can't speak about other parts of the world, but I can speak about what I have experienced and what I see around me. That it's also important that we respect the lives of everybody, including animals.
But what he's saying actually ties in directly with the theme. Exactly. I just found it connects in so many ways with our society, and there's this whole, if you are invested in the political spectrum, you know what dead goods suggest, yes. And so, I think this poem can work on so many different levels, and so maybe we should leave it there. Thank you, Axel. And let's take
the last one, if you don't mind.
Yes, please go ahead. Yeah. So are you taking this as the final poem? So this is the poem that you choose the theme. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, if I can.
Yeah. Yes, you can do that because we are going to be winding up shortly.
No. So the title of this is Animals Philosophy. The two male female dogs in our house go out every evening to catch feelings. My next door neighbor goes out often every Friday evening to catch fresh air. The male friends of our dogs often sneak in onto our compound. They come for visiting. My neighbor's female friend often comes around in a masked face. She tells him she doesn't want folks to see her come in. Its humanness indeed based on the capability of capture. Thank you. With this poem,
well, thank you.
I'd like to leave it open for any interpretation that.
All right, we'll wait it for you. Tonight is a night of questions too. Tony gave us a question to answer, which I must confess he marked me 0 out of 100. But so
I like to hear that question.
No, what he did was to read a poem and then he asked us to title it. And I gave a title which he says is the exact opposite of what the poem means. So, yeah. Here we go.
At the time, we didn't know if the goat was dead or alive. So.
Yeah, but now we know.
Will you be around on Saturday?
It's a program on Saturday.
No, I think he's inviting you for something, maybe a fist fight or something.
Not face to face. I hear there will be a La Casa this Saturday.
Yes. There is a right here at the Great Institute. There's going to be a La Casa slam. Yeah. So you could. Sure, who knows what might happen?
Yes.
But it's now like
I'll be around. I'll be around with you.
What I'd like us to do is to begin the ending up. So we've had a final poem from Ato, and he gave us a poem with a theme he chose. And that is actually the final reading that we do also. For you, Tony, choose a theme of your choice, as it were, and then let's hear the poem.
Yeah, so before we go into that, on a more serious note, I think whilst we were talking about activism, we talked about being privileged with our experience. I was probably teasing at all, but now that I know that human beings can share unique bonds with goats, I'm also challenged to change my mind and probably write more to support Atu's goats. And but so this next poem, Doc said we've talked about that a lot, too much, to be fair. So let's talk about love. The title of this poem is Love of My Life, parenthesis, the prayer. Give me a canvas and I'll paint you a mirror for you to see. See everything my compliments are trying to show you. Show you without an amazing work of art of body, soul, and mind. Mind of a beauty so vivid, vivid enough for you to touch of a skin so delicate with grace, grace of a queen in all her majesty, majesty crowning everything you are and will always be, the gem and the mirror my soul paints on a canvas. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And you've, I suppose, lightened up our mood with the final poem.
The weather has changed.
Thank you for that lovely love poem to wind up the evening. And just as I mentioned at the beginning, this is the first of the joint programming for 2024 between the Writers Project of Ghana and partners, the Goethe Institute. This is it's a themed poetry reading that we call Poetry Time at Goethe Abansoro. And it happens every second month. So we are going to have another pair of poets. They'll give us readings, which I hope will be just as entertaining. I really enjoyed myself this evening. And we also have more programming coming up, and we will be having a writer of the month, and we will send out announcements for that as well. There will be one at the end of March. So thank you very much, everybody. Those who joined online, IG, YouTube. I know some people hogged onto the Zoom, even though we didn't share it, but thank you for joining us well. And for those who came in person, we really appreciate you for spending your time with us. And with that, thank you, Tony. And I see Ato has dropped off, but thank you to Ato, and everybody have a good evening.
Thank you all for coming.